You've probably seen this somewhere online. Maybe at 2 in the morning, falling down a rabbit hole. Maybe a friend sent you the video. Maybe the algorithm just decided you needed to see it. Anunnaki, ancient aliens, a planet called Nibiru, beings that came to Earth hundreds of thousands of years ago, genetically modified primitive humans to use as gold miners and built the Sumerian civilization as a kind of interplanetary colonial project. There are millions of videos about this, books, podcasts, community with hundreds of thousands of members. And if you look at the surface, it has everything. Reference to ancient texts, names that sound academic, photos of clay tablets, a system that feels complete and coherent. But there is one problem. The original text says something different, not slightly different, not a matter of interpretation, fundamentally different, as if we are looking at two completely unrelated documents, expect one claims to be based on the other. And that is what we're going to do today. We are going to read the original text together. Not to attack anyone who believes the alien version, not to close the door on curiosity, but because there is one principle that has to apply here. If you are going to claim something is based on a source, you have to be honest about what that source actually says. The real Anunnaki story is stranger, darker, and more human than any alien theory. Let's start there. The word Anunnaki appears hundreds of times across Sumerian and Akkadian texts. We have thousands of tablets that mention them. This is not some obscure one-off reference buried in a forgotten corner of a museum archive. The Anunnaki are central to Sumerian cosmology, the way God is central to the Bible. In the original text, the Anunnaki are gods, not aliens, not astronauts, gods, in exactly the same sense that every other ancient civilization used that word. Etymologically, the name Anunnaki in Sumerian most accurately translates to descendant of An, or those who come from An. An, written in cuneiform with the symbol for a star, is the name of the supreme sky deity, and also the generic Sumerian word for sky and heaven. So, Anunnaki literally children of the sky, or those who come from above. In the Sumerian cosmic order, power was divided into three tiers. At the top, An, Enlil, and Enki, the three primary gods controlling sky, air, and water. Beneath them, the Anunnaki, a collective of gods whose number varies by text, anywhere from 7 to 600. And at the bottom, the Igigi, divine laborers whose job was to carry out the Anunnaki's orders. This is not fringe scholarship. This is the consensus of over a century of Assyriology, the academic field that studies ancient Mesopotamia, developed through the work of hundreds of linguists across dozens of universities worldwide. The word alien does not appear once. Here is where the original story gets genuinely uncomfortable. In the myth of Atrahasis, one of the oldest complete Sumerian texts we have, dating to roughly the 17th century BC, there is a labor crisis in the divine world. The Igigi, the lower tier, gods who did the physical work, had been digging rivers and canals for 40 years straight. They had had enough. They burned their tools. They marched on Enlil's place in the middle of the night, a divine labor strike. The solution the senior gods agreed on create humans, mix clay with the blood of a slain god, and from a begin that could take over the Igigi's workload. This is where the narrative of humans were made to serve the gods actually comes from. And yes, it is in the original text, but notice what the work is: digging canals, tilling fields, managing irrigation, agricultural labor. Because Sumeria was an agricultural civilization, a civilization whose survival depended entirely on its ability to control the flow of water through a flat, dry landscape. Their creation story reflects their daily reality. The gods they imagined needed what the people themselves needed: manage land, controlled rivers, food production. There are no gold mines in the original text, no spacecraft, no genetic laboratories. The Sumerians were not describing an alien operation, they were explaining, in the language of myth, why human beings have to work so hard just to survive. To understand how the Anunnaki became space travelers, we need to talk about one man, Zecharia Sitchin. Sitchin was born in Azerbaijan in 1920. He grew up in mandatory Palestine and later worked as a journalist and business executive in New York. In 1976, he published his first book, The 12th Planet. His central argument: the Sumerian texts were not mythology. They were factual records of visits by extraterrestrial beings from a 12th planet in our solar system, which he called Nibiru, who came to Earth, genetically engineered early humans, and eventually left. The book became a bestseller. 11 sequels followed, collectively known as the Earth Chronicles series. Over 2 million copies sold, translated into dozens of languages. Here is the problem. Sitchin was not a Sumerian linguist. He was not an archaeologist. He had no academic credential in ancient Near Eastern studies, and his translation, when examined by scholars who had spent their entire career studying cuneiform, were not accurate. This is not a matter of opinion, it is documented in peer-reviewed literature in detail. The alien version of the Anunnaki story was built almost entirely on a foundation of mistranslation, and the scale at which it spread, 2 million books, millions of videos, tell us something important, not about the Sumerians, about us. Michel Heiser was a scholar of Semitic and ancient Near Eastern language, holding a doctorate from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. He spent a significant portion of the academic career doing something very specific, checking Sitchin's claims, word by word, against the actual text. His findings were published in academic journals and made freely available to the public. Example 1. Sitchin claimed the Sumerian word sim means rocket or sky vehicle. In the original text, sim means name, sharing the same root as the Hebrew word for name, appearing in contexts that have nothing to do with flight or machinery. There is no instance anywhere in the cuneiform corpus where sim refers to a vehicle of any kind. Example 2. Planet Nibiru. The word Nibiru does appear in Babylonian text, but as term for a specific position in the night sky, most likely Jupiter or the point of the spring equinox. There is no description of a 12th planet, no elongated orbital path, no reference to periodic visit every 3,600 years. The broader Assyriology community, the academic field that has studied Mesopotamian civilization for over a century, has consistently and unanimously rejected Sitchin translation. not because they oppose alternative ideas, but because his translation cannot be verified from the source material. Disagreeing with Sitchin is not closing your mind, it is opening the actual books. Subscribe for more hidden history. Back to the original text, because there is a part of the story that almost never gets told, even by people who claim to take the Anunnaki seriously. In Sumerian cosmology, the Anunnaki are not wise, benevolent rulers. They are not enlightened beings guiding humanity toward a greater destiny. They are gods who play politics, who compete with each other, who make decisions based on self-interest, who can be petty, short-sighted, and cruel. The flood story in Atrahasis makes this clear. Enlil, the head of the Anunnaki, decides to destroy humanity. The reason is not moral. Humanity has not sinned. There has been not great evil. Enlil wants to destroy us because we are too loud. The original text uses the word rikmu, which can mean noise, clamor, or in certain contexts, upheaval or revolt. There is scholarly debate about whether Enlil was bothered by literal sound or by the growing, increasingly unmanageable size of the human population. But either way, the decision to wipe out every human being on Earth was not a cosmic moral judgment. It was the reaction of a powerful entity who was inconvenient, an Enki, god of wisdom, longtime rival of Enlil, warned one man, Atrahasis, to build a boat not out of love for humanity, but because allowing Enlil to win completely was something Enki could not accept. The god uses humans as pieces in their political games. That is the original story, and it is far more unsettling than aliens. There is one more layer in the original text, and this one I find the hardest to shake. In the later Sumerian text, specifically the Lemon literature, the ancient poems of mourning, the Anunnaki begin to be described differently, not as all-powerful rules, not as conquerors, but as gods who live. The lament for the destruction of Ur, written around 2000 BC after the city was sacked and destroyed, describes the gods abandoning their cities one by one, walking away, turning their backs on their own temples before the disaster arrived. Read that again carefully. The gods did not stay to protect the people. They did not intervene to prevent the catastrophe. They left first. The Sumerians who wrote those lament texts were not describing powerful alien protectors. They were describing abandonment. They were writing in the most refined, literary language available to them at the time about what it feels like when the force you believed were watching over you simply walk away. That is not a narrative about extraterrestrial with advanced technology. That is one of the most profoundly human narratives ever written. The alien version, at least, gives humanity a role as a project, an experiment, a resource with value. In the original text, we were created to serve, and when our existence became inconvenient, the answer was a flood, and when the cities fell, the gods turned around and walked away. The Sumerians wrote that down on clay in careful, deliberate lines because they needed to say it happened. Here is the more honest question we should be asking. Why didn't Sitchin's version spread further than the academic version? Not because the people who believe it are unintelligent, not because they are lazy. Often it is the opposite. They are curious people. People who feel that mainstream history is too flat, too sanitized, too reluctant to admit how much we do not know. People who are looking for a bigger narrative than the one taught in school. And someone offered them a bigger narrative complete with visuals, with real clay tablets as props, with a system that felt internally consistent and comprehensive. There is also a psychological dimension here that we should not dismiss. The ancient astronaut theory, in all its versions, gives humanity a place in a large cosmic story. We are not random biological accident on a small planet in an ordinary galaxy. We are a project. We have an origin that connects us to something out there. That is a deeply human need, and there is nothing shameful about having it. The problem is only this: meeting that need with mistranslation is not an act of respect toward the Sumerians. It erases what they actually thought, what they actually felt, what they actually wrote down. The Sumerians left us their records, thousands of tablets, thousands of years of work. They do not need us to add aliens to make their story worth telling. Their story, the real one, is already extraordinary. But I want to be honest with you about something. Rejecting Sitchin does not mean all the questions about Sumeria have been answered. The emergence of Sumerian civilization remaining one of the most genuinely puzzling phenomena in all of human history. Their language is a linguistic isolate. It has no known relatives, no language family, no traceable ancestor. It appeared fully formed in the historical record. Their mathematical system was base 60. The reason we still divide hours into 60 minutes and circle into 360 degrees. And it appeared with a sophistication that does not fit the gradual developmental curve we see in most other civilizations. Their astronomical knowledge was precise enough to track planetary cycles across centuries. Their legal code, the Code of Ur-Nammu, predates Hammurabi by 300 years. And then there is Göbekli Tepe in southern Turkey, a set of monumental stone construction dating to roughly 9600 BC, built by people we previously assumed were incapable of such organization. That discovery alone rewrote the timeline of human complexity. These are real mysteries, real gaps in what we understand about our own past, and they do not require alien intervention to be fascinating. There may have been advanced cultures before Sumeria whose physical evidence was lost, submerged by rising sea levels at the end of the last ice age. As emerging research suggests, there may be patterns of knowledge transmission between ancient cultures that we have not yet fully mapped. These are questions worth asking seriously, rigorously. You do not need fiction to find them interesting. The real thing is interesting enough. So this is who the Anunnaki actually are. Not astronauts from Nibiru, not interplanetary genetic engineers, but gods who played politics with each other and with us. Who created humanity not out of love but out of a labor shortage. Who decided to flood the earth not because of moral but because we were an inconvenience. And who, when the cities finally started to fall, turned around and walked away. There is something heavier in that picture than in any alien theory. Because if the Anunnaki were advanced beings executing a long-term plan, then we are part of something. We have a role. We have a place in a design that is larger than us. But if the Anunnaki are what the original text described, powerful, flawed, politically motivated entities who created us for their convenience, debated our fate like pieces on a board, and ultimately left, then the question they leave behind is far more haunting than anything a spacecraft could answer. Is something made us? Does it still care? The Sumerians asked that question 4,000 years ago. They asked it in careful lines pressed into wet clay, and based on the text they left us, their answer seems to have been this: not always. And that is what forced us to learn how to build civilization ourselves. The Anunnaki didn't come from the stars to save us. They exist in the tablets, and the tablet teach us something more important than their origin. From the very beginning, humanity understood that no one was coming, so we pick up the tools and we build everything ourselves.